everybody, and welcome to my weekly video broadcast. My name is Jennifer Edwards, and I am a veterinarian and transformational coach and speaker. And if you have not already, I would like to invite you to sign up for my weekly email blog. Each week I send out an email with various topics that you may find interesting, just little insights to help you along in your day and in your life. So, that being said, this week I would like to talk about the seasons of change. And it's a little bit running on the theme of last week where I spoke a little bit about transitions. And I'll go into a little bit different angle that I will take. Um, I live in New Hampshire. It is October 13th. So you can only imagine what my physical life, my world looks like right now. It is spectacular. It is breathtaking. The colors, the fall, the autumn in New England is just compares to none. And I was driving along yesterday and I was, just taking it all in. And a couple of things occurred to me that I would like to share with you. When I spoke about transitions last time, I talked about transitions, times in life that change. Things end, things begin, and we talked about a few different ways, a few different ideas of how one might be able to handle transitions or approach transitions in life. So because they're scary and they're difficult a lot of times. If you are interested in that, please feel free to go back and watch that video, and hopefully that can help you. Today, we're still on that theme of change, but I'm thinking about it more in the lines of seasonal change, and more as opposed to like, boom, something's ending, a relationship, a job, like health, like boom, faced with it, like deal with it, you're transitioning, like here it is, or like even if you choose it. I'm thinking more of like the seasonal flow of life as it changes. Because yes, there are those abrupt changes in life, but with that, there are also, even when nothing really is, you're just going on your day, you're raising your kids, you're doing your job, you're working out, just having your life, there still are seasons. Things still ebb and flow in and out. Where you are today is not where you were in high school. It just isn't. It's a different season. You graduated from high school, you went off to college. For some people, that's very stressful. That would be a major time of transition where they were struggling. But for some people, they're like, cool, see ya, going to college. And they wouldn't necessarily identify that as a having to handle a transition, so to speak. But it's still flowing with the seasons of life. And in our lives, it is normal to go through phases where we are productive and creative, and we're getting things done, and you got new ideas, and I'm going to make that business, I'm going to have those kids, I'm going to start that new job, I'm going to graduate from school, and we're like, we're creating and we're going. Then we go through phases of life where we're just in it. We're sustaining, things are going every day, just, taking my classes or doing my job and just riding along. The business is already developed. I'm just working it. It's sustaining itself. Things are going kind of like maintenance phase. Then we go through phases where things break down. And I don't mean break down like necessarily bad, but things end. Things stop. Things get taken apart. And then we go through a phase of sometimes just nothing. We may call that the void, just a blank area where we just sit in that for a while. Now, when we are in creativity, it's exciting, it's fun. I'm like, oh, I got this idea. Maybe we get overwhelmed because we're so busy, because we're creating something, but in general, that's a great time. And when maintenance is occurring, we're cruising along, things are good, ups and downs, but for the most part, we're cruising. Where most people struggle is going to be in the breaking down and in the void, in the empty space. What I would like to offer is to understand that these are not bad times. They might feel bad, like you might have a hard time, but they're not bad. They're not wrong. They are actually a normal part of the seasonal flow of our lives, and they are essential. They are necessary, because until we take things apart, until we have like a breakdown of some sort, or go through a funk, or leave that job or whatever, there's no space for new, right? So I've said to friends a few times that we're just miserable in relationships, and it's like the 100% thing you're guaranteed is that a good partner's not going to show up as long as you're with that one, right? Because sometimes we have to end and sit in the nothing to create the space for what we want to show up. But it's the fear of that ending, and it's the fear of sitting in that space that keep us frozen in activity. And then we get anxious and we get stressed and we get depressed because we're stuck. I put that in air quotes because we're never really stuck. But we tell ourselves, our thoughts say that we're stuck. And it seems like we are, but we're not. And as I was driving, I started thinking about, I looked at the trees and I thought, if ever there is an example of breaking down with such beauty and grace, it is nature. The trees, if you think about it, are getting ready to stand bare and cold, especially where I am. I mean, you may not live in such an environment, but for a lot of places, they're literally going to stand there naked and cold for months, covered in ice. Yet they head into that, they initiate that process with like beauty, because inherently the energies of the trees know that that's part of their life cycle, that they're going to stand bare, because you know what, spring is going to come, and when spring comes, boom, all their new leaves and all their fruit are going to blossom, and all their little sprouts and new limbs and the little baby trees. And then I started thinking about the animals, and I thought, yeah, like, we're in fall. What are the animals doing? They're preparing for winter, right? They're either the bears are going to go hibernate, or the squirrels are collecting their nuts, and the snakes are going wherever they go, and they're all doing their thing in preparation, knowing that winter's coming, the quiet time, the nothing. The deer, I'm sure, love summer. There's green stuff everywhere, and they get into everybody's garden. They need all their lovely salad, and it's great. And their little fawns are born, and there's plenty of food, and hopefully plenty of water, and life just is merry for them, right? But all of a sudden, fall comes, and they know what's coming, but they're not sitting under a tree going, "Oh, this really sucks." Right? They're not sulking, they're not victims, they're not like, oh well, since everything's ending, then like, that's where we go. And what's interesting is that they just inherently know that that's normal and that's a part of life, and they accept it. And so what I'm offering to you is to do the same. Like, I think as humans, we've gotten so caught up in our minds and in our thoughts that take over and block us from really remembering like who we really are, and who we are in our essence, and in our natural way of existing. And if we can embrace those times, and I don't mean that you need to like it, and I don't mean that it needs to feel good, but I'm just saying to stop digging the heels in and resisting and saying no, or poor me, or I suck, or whatever version we tend to go to, is to embrace it and say, wow, like, I can see a lot of things in my life are ending right now, and I'm kind of, sorry, I'm kind of energetically feeling a little low. Hey, Phoebe, come here. Okay, sorry. So I'm energetically feeling a little low. So let me sit in here. Let me see what is for my benefit. Where am I heading? And just sit there. And then once whatever ends that was going to end, then just be in that. Maybe you're a little lonely. Maybe you're like, oh my God, I don't have a job. Okay. Do you like it? No. Is it fun and secure? No. But trust in yourself, trust that this is a normal cycle of your life, and that your spring is coming, and create it. Don't just sit there and wallow, but say, okay, what do I need to do? Maybe sit in the nothing for a while, and then when you feel like you're kind of done, then say, all right, I'm lonely, I ended a relationship, what do I need to do to go out and meet people? Or how do I start looking for another job? How do I put myself out there? Who do I know? Who can I call? Can I go on LinkedIn? Whatever. So then start taking action. And then all of a sudden, boom, you transition out of that void into the creativity phase, and you get that new job, you meet that new person, you start working out, and like all of a sudden, like life is going again. Right? But we seem to have taken two important phases of four phases that we go through as seasons, and we've like made those bad or wrong, or we resist them, and and maybe we need to let go of the idea that everything always needs to feel good and that we need to like everything, because that's just not the way life works. And if we like everything, if life never presented challenges, we would learn nothing, zero. We would grow not at all. You would be the same person at 20 that you are at 50, that you are at 80. Because where would there be to grow? And quite frankly, life would be boring. You know, how do we know that something is full of joy if we've never experienced the opposite? How do we know that something's exciting if something else isn't boring? How do we know that we think somebody's really nice and sweet and loving if we haven't experienced the jerks in the world, right? So learning to also appreciate the contrast sometimes can help. And when we are in our creativity, exciting point of life, we wouldn't appreciate that if we didn't have those low times. So just sharing this as a concept to really think about, and instead of resisting, try, see if you can embrace it a little bit. And letting go of the idea that in order for you to embrace something, that you have to like it or that it has to feel good. Because that's not the case at all. There's a lot of life that doesn't feel good. And it's in those moments, if we embrace it, there are nuggets, there are golden opportunities to learn. Why is this like this? For me, I live as if everything happens in my best interest, always. Sometimes it's hard to see, why is that in my best interest? But ultimately, looking back, almost always it is. So with that, I will end and wish you a very happy day. And I hope wherever you live, it is as beautiful as it is where I am. And please share the email blog, share these videos with your friends. I would love to reach more people, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.